Can I just start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Let's call the Finance Committee meeting to order. The first item on our agenda today is the mayor's proposed budget, and we'll start out by calling on the mayor to make a few introductory remarks, and then we'll have staff kind of go through some of the details. So, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have put together the mayor's proposed budget, and at this time I'd like to present it to you. Does everyone have a copy of that?
It is in front of the council members, yes.
Okay. In doing so, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is the overall economy is stagnant at best, and the revenues are flat and expenses are up. The good news is the city of Willmar has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the state, and with some of the cuts I have made, we are able to maintain, if not in some cases improve, the service to our citizens. Charlie Stevens, our city administrator, and Steve Okens, our financial director, were very instrumental in putting this budget together. And at this time, I would just like to ask Ms. Stevens if she would answer any questions that come up, or if she would like to explain to us some of the finer points of the budget.
Sure, I can walk through the presentation, and again, copies of the presentation are in the binders for the council members. Just to remind everybody that the City of Willmar's mission statement, City of Willmar is committed to providing responsible municipal service in an open, effective, and efficient manner to all citizens of the local and area community, and the ultimate goal is to preserve and enhance the quality of life for future generations. And our goals focus around the areas of leadership, operations, infrastructure, connections, and development. And generally, our goal is to provide the most efficient and effective services and continue to maintain Willmar as a thriving, dynamic regional center. As the mayor stated, Willmar has a strong financial picture. The revenues are stable. We have a AA bond rating. We continue to see growth in new construction. We're able to maintain our basic services, and in 2013, we really focused on building a capital improvements program. Looking at our 2013 proposed budget, the general operating fund proposed budget is $15 million, with capital improvements being proposed at $5 million. Our special revenue internal funds, $900,000. Debt service, about $2.4 million. Our enterprise, which is our wastewater fund, at about $8.2 million, for a total overall picture of just under $35 million. And I would note that in that general operating, we are including a transfer of $1.8 million for capital improvements. So that is a significant investment in our capital infrastructure and does somewhat inflate the general operating budget in 2013. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through this. The mayor did include a proposed levy increase in 2013. You can see that in 2013, the general operating increase, the general operating levy was for just a little under $4 million, $3.9 million. And we're proposing a 2 basis point levy increase, or $240,000 for 2013. And that would be the only proposed levy increase would be $240,000. And that levy increase is to be dedicated for infrastructure. It is not dedicated for general operations. In 2013, we would propose allocating that additional $240,000 to the streets program. That would allow us, if we use that $240,000 as cash, which was what we were proposing to do, it would allow us to do an additional 1 mile of overlay in 2013. And in addition to the proposed levy increase, again, for street maintenance and street improvement, we are proposing an additional $60,000 for crack seal and repair within the street bonding program for 2013. So overall, we're proposing a $300,000 increase in our streets program, $240,000 of that coming from a levy increase, and the other $60,000 in our debt service. The effect of that levy increase, based upon a home value at $115,000, estimate the levy increase would amount to just under $25.50 a year, or $2.12 a month would be what the effect of that tax increase would be on a property owner. This next slide, I think you've seen before many times. It shows where our levy limit, it shows our levy limit base, and again, you can see the numbers for our property tax levy, and our local government allotment is staying the same this year. I mean, that's again a large portion of our revenues, and that's showing the same. And I would point out, I think there is an error on that. It should show for 2013 the $3,992,734,000. So there is an error on that number, and I apologize for that. For the property tax levy, should be the same levy. Again, you can see on this slide just the effects of where our kind of revenue sources that, if you look at our, from 2009, from the local government aid that was allotted in the kind of pink color, the red shows the local government aid received, and then the blue is our levy to show, again, proportionally how those are changing. Back in 2009, 2010, you could see that what was allotted and what was actually, and then even what was actually received, even with unallotments, was still greater than our property levy. You can see that start to change in predominantly in 12, and then in 13 now our property levy with the increase for infrastructure, again infrastructure not operations, the levy would be slightly higher than what we're bringing in for local government aid. This data is from 2011, and it shows the regional centers, it shows the tax capacity, the population, it shows both the county, city, and school district, and any special levies that are shown. And you can see where Willmar fits on that overall scale. Willmar has one of the lowest levies of regional centers at 29. And then now to kind of look at how the general fund breaks out in terms of revenues. The property taxes, and again, this is the current levy plus it would also include any delinquent levies. That's why, again, it will be a little higher than the actual 3.9. It'll be a little, it's closer to that it's that 4 million number. But that's about 27% of our general fund revenues. Licenses and permits, small number, about 1.8% of our revenues. Intergovernmental aid, and that does include LGA, but it also can include, other state pass-through monies that we receive. So that's 31 million. Service charges, about 5% of our budget is in service charges. Fines and forfeits, just a little bit over 1%. Interest earnings, reimbursements that we receive, about 6%. Other financing sources, and that would include the MUC, that would include payments from the utility, Rice Hospital, that's about 20% of our budget. And then you can see our fund balance that we've programmed in there, and that's about 8% of that 15 million for 2013. The next kind of shows you how that breaks out graphically. Again, the property levy and local government aid, that makes up about 60, a little over, that makes up almost 70% of our budget, 70% of our funds come from those two sources. Then if we take a look at the expenditure side, kind of broken that down for you, and you'll see administration, and in administration, some of these have been combined for this. In administration, I've also included IT because that's a function of that I oversee, so it's administration and IT, but together that represents about 3.6% of the overall budget. Mayor and council, about 1.4% of the budget. Planning and development, 3%. City clerk, elections and assessing, and again, that's all been combined for that, but it's all falls under one department director. A little over 3%. The finance department's less than 3%. We have our non-departmentals, and that's about 8% of the budget. And then this is again this is very typical of what you would see in local government. You'll see public works and public safety. Those are the larger portions of the budget. Public safety at about 31% of our general fund budget, and public works at about 20%. Spending about 3% for library. Our community partners, and that would include Meals on Wheels, it would include the Design Center, it would include the Humane Society, some of those fundings, they represent less than 1% of our budget. Leisure services or recreation is about 8%, 8.5%. And then the transfer, again, you're seeing there that 1.8 million, that's about 12% of our expenditures in the general fund, and that's being transferred over to build our capital improvements plan. Again, you can kind of see it graphically. Again, not surprising that not surprising to see that public safety and public works are the larger portions of the general fund operation. That's pretty typical. Some of the changes in 2013, we did see increases in our personnel costs. I mean, that was based on our contract settlements and based on our health insurance. That amounts to about $81,000 in the overall budget. The mayor is proposing an increase in the mayor and council salaries for 2013, and I would note that that's something that, if that is to occur, the city council must act upon that by ordinance prior to the November election. Mayor is also proposing a government relations contract. We previously had a contract for government relations that we shared with the Municipal Utilities Commission. We did not have that contract in 2012. We had it in 2011 and years prior, but we're proposing to reinstate that in 2013. We also received some funding increases from both the library and the Candy Ojai Area Transit. And those are some of the increases for our budget. In addition, just like everyone else, we also see the increase in the utility costs. That affects us just like it does affect homeowners. Fuel costs, we are budgeting our fuel costs at $4 a gallon for this year, and so that's an increase. And again, I would note that we pay less than the pump price, but that $4 is still going to be an increase, and so we're affected by those things as well in our budget. Some of the things that we did to try to offset some of those increases in 2013 is we looked at making some reductions in overtime for public works and police. We looked at what we were spending in overtime versus what we were budgeting for it, and we were able to bring that down. We may also look at some changes in how we do our shifts to manage that. We did make some and are proposing some reductions in seasonal employees. Some of those that we're proposing are the elimination of lifeguards at Robbins Island. We would post it to swim at your own risk, which is what the county parks have done as well. We're looking at combining the position of head lifeguard and pool manager into one position and making some other adjustments to our seasonal employees and some of our recreation programs and also in public works. We are looking at reducing the numbers of trees that we plant each year. We feel that we can live with, we feel that we can make that reduction. We've been very aggressive in tree planting. Some of the areas that we're planting we think are getting full. And we think it's a reasonable way to do it. We did make some overall reductions in the funding to the community partners by about $21,000. Some groups did receive some increases and some groups received some decreases, but overall represented about a $21,000 decrease. And then we're transferring $1.8 million over for our capital improvements program, and we're trying to build a 5-year capital improvements program from 2013 to 2017. I want to talk a little bit about the capital improvements program. You may remember this from the workshop that we had earlier this year. We looked at a new process for 2013 for our capital improvements. We came up with new criteria for consideration. We looked at whether something is a legal mandate, whether it's maintaining an existing asset, is it sustainable, will it reduce or offset our costs, is it a critical public safety need or concern, and does it meet the city council priorities. And the goal was to establish a 5-year planning process from 2013 to 2017. The way that we fund our capital improvements, there's a couple of different ways. We fund through bonding or through debt. We typically use that for our street improvements. Cash, which is either our unspent reserves or maybe unspent previous capital allocations. So that's what you're seeing in that $1.8 million. It would be an unspent reserve from a previous. And allocating over. Special revenues, which would be our wastewater treatment fund as a special revenue fund, or our local option sales tax. Capital projects, you can see what we are proposing here and what we have done in the past is if you look from 2009 over to, we've got the 2012 adjusted budget numbers in there and then the 2013 numbers. In terms of equipment, we're looking at about $1.4 million, $1.48 million in costs for capital equipment replacement. We're proposing an additional $5 million in projects. In addition to that, we're proposing the $2.6 million in street projects for a total of about $9 million in capital projects. And you can see over the years, particularly if you look at the numbers of 2009, 2010, in terms of projects, we really weren't doing as many in our equipment, and that was an area that the city used to balance its budget when we received local government aid on allotments or reductions. And so you can see that it's reflected in our 2009, 2010 numbers. 2011 and then again in 2012, well in 2012 particularly in 2013, those numbers also reflect the industrial park funding, so that's why you see the project numbers being quite a bit higher there in 12 and then again in 13. The budget calendar going forward from this point is August 13th. Of course, that's where we are this evening. It's the presentation of the mayor's proposed budget and CIP. The Finance Committee would need to take action and recommend action on a proposed tax levy on August 27th in anticipation of the September 4th Truth and Taxation hearing, which is where the you need to certify the levy, and the levy can be certified at its maximum amount on September 4th. After that time, the levy can be decreased, but it cannot be increased. And then we would propose doing some council workshops, and then of course additional public review in September and October. We haven't, quite set those dates, but that's something for the Finance Committee to discuss. And then in November is typically when we've had a review of the Municipal Utilities Commission, the Rice Hospital, and the Wilmer Housing and Redevelopment Authority budgets. But we have scheduled December 3rd as the budget adoption date, and then December 31st is when that certification of the levy, tax levy to the county must occur. And with that, I'd be happy, and as would the Finance Director, Steve Okens, to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for that. It's a lot of information in a hurry, and we haven't gotten into the details yet, but does the committee have any questions at this particular time? I have one thought that occurs to me. In the revenue area, did we project any increases in fees?
We have not included any fee increases in the 2013 budget, so our revenues are stable,
Okay.
but we've not included any fee increases at this time.
In one other small matter, but we have $210,000 in the mayor and consul. What all is put in there outside of the mayor and consul's salaries? Because
the mayor and council, the salary proposal is about $13,500 for total. I think it was a $1,500 per council and mayor increase, so that amounts to $13,500. The government relations contract of $15,000 is included in the mayor and council's budget for 2013, and then we also included approximately $4,000 additional in professional services, and that is to do some work on the downtown gateways as part of the downtown plan.
and that's in the...
I think those are the major increases
Okay.
that were in the mayor and council budget.
Okay.
And I would point out that all the council members have kind of a detailed budget in their binder from them. It has each department, and it will show the changes of what was proposed and what the mayor's proposed budget change is from 2012 to 2013 by department.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Stevens, would you kind of go over the levy increases not for general operations again on
Sure.
what page is that? Page?
Sure. I think
3.
if I could ask, I think that's slide 4, perhaps.
Slide 6, I think.
Oh, slide 6, if you could put that one back up for me. We're proposing 2 basis points, which is $240,000. That proposal is not for general operations. I want to be very clear about that. It will not be in the general operating fund. It is to be dedicated to the streets program, and that amount would allow for an additional mile of overlay in 2013. So it is not funding the general operations of the city. It is going specifically to street programs in 2013, or is proposed to do so.
So if I understand that correctly, had we not put that in there, it would have been no increase in...
It would have been there would be without that, there would be no levy increase for 2013.
You know,
That is correct.
That isn't without precedent. I remember maybe 8 or 10 years ago, we put $200,000 in the budget for street improvements 2 years in a row. So this sort of thing isn't without precedent. Questions from the committee? All right, I would just make a comment on workshops. We need to have some workshops so that everybody, all the council members, can have some opportunity to have input, and I'm thinking of having 2 of them. Right now, it looks like we'll have one, I think, on September 10th. And that will be primarily to talk about the capital improvement project and also some of the community partners, what we used to call maybe the non-departmental things, where we'll talk about that. But the capital improvements is new, it's exciting, and it gives us an opportunity to kind of get caught up on what we've been maybe not putting enough money into in previous years. So that'll be on September 10th. We don't have a date yet for another workshop where we'll talk about budget in general, and then we'll have the one that we always have in November where we finalize the budget. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for council members to get input and to get questions answered. And I would suggest that everyone hang on to these binders. This is really nice. We've got a lot of detail here, and we won't have information at our table when we come to committee meetings and things like that. We'll be expected to have this thing, so leave it in your vehicle or however you want to handle that, but just remember to bring it all the time.
One item. I would also just like to note, Mr. Chairman, that the wastewater treatment budget, we are still doing a rate study, and we are conducting a rate study on wastewater treatment rates. So we have a proposed wastewater treatment budget, but our rate study is not yet complete, and so that may change, and we may need to have some further discussion about that between now and the adoption date in December.
Okay.
When we have those numbers, when we have that completed rate study in front of us, we'll have a clearer picture of information that we can bring to the Finance Committee to discuss.
All right.
But again, at this time, we're not proposing any rate increases for wastewater treatment either. So.
Okay.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
sir, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chair, could you tell me, does the public have an input in this, and when?
We have not had any
We've typically taken
general,
public.
yeah.
We've typically taken public comment at the Finance Committee. Typically at the workshops, there's an opportunity again for public comment. I think we're going to look at also how we can utilize our website to take some public comment over our website. So we may be doing that as well.
Like,
The public, the public is always welcome to come to the meetings or call any one of us for that matter. They don't have to come and appear before us. They can certainly just call us if they're more comfortable doing that. But this will be on the website this week?
The budget presentation will be up on the website, yes, by the end of this week.
Okay. Mr. Dockett.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I'd like to have some discussion in future Finance Committee meetings that deals with our investment portfolio. I know that in 2000, we had $38,500,000, almost $600,000 in investments, and our interest in dividends that year were $2,271,000. Yet in 2000, we had an investment portfolio of $54,300,000, and our interest earnings were $1,059,168. That's a big difference of dollars that we don't have access to over an 11-year period. That just drives the point that I've been making, is that we are living in very uncertain times. And so I'd like to have some discussion about this, our investment portfolio.
We can arrange that at one of the Finance Committee meetings. Anything else here? Okay, the only other question I had, and I think we'll deal with that on the 10th. So, the issue of increases for council and mayor, that will have to be handled prior to, and I think Charlene mentioned that, but that's got to be handled before the general election. So that's something that's going to have to be discussed fairly soon.
In order for it to take effect in 2013.
Right. Otherwise, it would be 2015.
It would be the next general election, which would be
Yeah.
2015. So just wanted to be clear with that. And we can, if you'd like the information on ordinance and timeframe, we can provide that for the next Finance Committee meeting or further discussion.
Yeah, okay. So that's just a heads up that that's something we need to deal with before the budget calendar. So we'll have that. All right. Any other comments or questions? Well, I want to thank the mayor and Charlene and Steve and staff for all of the work they put into this budget. It's very interesting, and I like the idea of having this book with all of the detail. I think we have a good budget. I think we have a budget, you know, may be changed. There may be some changes and opportunities for some changes as we go forward, but it's a very good starting point. So with that, we will move from this to the finance agenda. And first item on our finance agenda is the police department budget request.
Dave?
Essentially, what I'm asking for is we have a unique opportunity within the police department. Because we've been working short-handed, we have our line 10 and 12 or 13, which is wages for part-time workers and full-time workers, is in better shape than what I would have normally anticipated. And I am short in my tools, and I would like to move $55,000 down from those two lines into tools to allow me to make some purchases that we've been putting off over the past few years. So I'm just asking for a line item change.
I understand that, no change in bottom line, but can you talk about what it is that you're going to be buying?
The two major things we're looking at is for 2 years we've put off purchasing bulletproof vests for the SWAT team. They are 2 years past warranty, so we're kind of going on borrowed time. That would be one item that I'm looking at. And then the other one would be our department rifles. Right now what we're using is rifles that we got in 1993. They were from DRMO, or they're military rifles that were used in the Vietnam War. And they loaned them out to departments after that war was done. We are operating off of those rifles, but I would like to upgrade those, and instead of being audited every year by the DRMO or by the military, give them their rifles back, because those are fully automatic weapons, which we really don't need. And that puts us in a better position than, I think, at some time in the near future, and this is just the word I got working with that organization, that they will probably be destroying some of the old military weapons, which this would fall under. And if they do that and ask for these weapons back, we would then be in a position where we would have no rifles. So those are the two main things that I want to move the funds down for.
Okay. One question, what happens to the old bulletproof vests? Are they destroyed, or what happens to them?
No, there's a program where you can donate to the military for the soldiers over in Iraq and Iran. They line the Humvees with those. We try to use, we keep a couple of them for our own personal vehicles. So if we had to drive up on a situation where we're receiving fire, we might throw it over the car window and just use it as an added layer of protection. But the majority of them are donated out to the military.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from the committee?
How many rifles are we going to be purchasing then? Or what kind of?
In our inventory right now, we have 18 that come from the military that we would replace, and then we have a few older ones of our own that we would also look at replacing at the same time, so they're all purchased at the same time.
So like 20 then? Or
I would suspect it'll be closer to 25.
25? And they're just used by the SWAT team then, or?
No, those are the rifles that you see in our squad cars and that are in our armory.
To the rifles and shotguns?
Now the shotguns, we're phasing those out. Police practices have changed over the years. It used to be everything was shotgun and handgun. We are finding, or I should say studies done, and when you look at police shootings and the use of the equipment we have, shotguns, you're either required to fire a slug, which is a single projectile capable of going through multiple walls in a house if you're using it indoors. Otherwise, you have buckshot, and the problem with buckshot is, let's say you have a bank alarm or something that goes off. Obviously, you know, you've got 9 pellets being emitted from the gun instead of just a single projectile. What we've done is changed our shooting program, where officers are now across the United States trained better in marksmanship, and they rely on the rifle instead of the shotgun, and the shotgun is kind of getting phased out.
Thank you.
Other questions? If not, we need a motion to make these internal changes. Again, no increase to the bottom line.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. The next item are these reports that we have. Does anyone have any questions on these, all of these reports that we have? If not, I have one on the local option sales tax. Just for clarification, on the comparative income and expense statement, and I know that there may have been some transfers in here, but we were projecting 1.9. Is that for the year, or is that to date?
That is, the projection, the budgeted amount of 1.9 is for the year.
Okay, so then we are on pretty close to on track.
Yes.
Okay, that was my question.
Yep.
And I had one other question on, it also had to do with, yeah. No, it wasn't that one. I answered that one myself. On the cash and investment portfolio, if you go to that particular one and you go to item number 21, Wells Fargo Advisors, and there's an asterisk there, par value of $3.5 million, but it must have some sort of a market value.
I'm going to, if I may, defer to Carol,
Okay.
who handles that
Sure.
more on a daily basis.
We had purchased that investment for 3.5, but part of it was called some time ago. So we're ending up with a value of 2.1. You'll see that on there. It's, if you notice that it ends in E85 as the security identification.
Okay.
That's all the same investment, but it's too hard to detail it any other way. So I've chosen to just do it that way. So the bottom line is the market value is 2,101,176, and the par value is 2.1.
2.1.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. Anyone else have any questions on these? Okay, we'll take that for information. Do we have any miscellany?
No miscellany, Mr. Chairman.
No, sir.
I guess we have none. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We are adjourned.